Welcome back to the news channel. I want to talk about a company that has been in the news a lot lately, and that is Boeing. And a lot of that news has been negative. They've gone through a lot of problems with their jets. They've recently just settled a case with the government and had to make a payout. It was a fine. And it doesn't look like things are over for this company yet. There was another testimony before Congress, all kinds of things going on, and it just does not look good. It's getting a lot of bad press. This is likely the most hated stock this year, and it just makes you wonder with all the bad publicity that it's getting. You have to take a closer look under the hood and see what's really going on here. I think what's important to note about Boeing is that it has something called a wide economic moat. It has one of the strongest wide economic moats. I mean, let's look at other companies. A company like Microsoft, right? Obviously, they have a very strong moat because of their Windows operating system, their Windows Office programs that are used in schools, institutions. It's the switching cost that's a big problem. A lot of software generally will work with their operating system, not other ones that are open source. There's very little competition in this field. They have a lot of other businesses, of course. It's well diversified, so it's a great business. However, it's not an essential. Then you have brand moats like Nike, Coca-Cola, right? So if you think about it, there's a lot of very strong moats, but they're not essential moats. What you're looking at right here is a wide-body aircraft, right? Now, this is an essential. The world cannot go on in its current form without these wide-body jets. These fly a lot of passengers, a lot of cargo. It's for shipping. You have to have them. This is essential transportation, and they are the largest producers of these jets. The only company that comes close, which is smaller, is Airbus, and that's it. And they don't make enough of them. As a matter of fact, these things are in such demand, they can't build these things fast enough for the demand. And they've had this issue for a long time. A lot of bottlenecks that they just can't make them fast enough. They're very, very expensive. They take time to build. Of course, it's very high capex, which is not good for the business, but they have pricing power. That's important. Now, at the same time, they're also a defense contractor, which kind of makes them too big to fail. I think that the government wouldn't allow them to fail because it could be considered a national security issue, right? When you have a product that's in such high demand and you have essentially no competition, remember that they're a leader in wide-body aircraft production. So another point I want to add, too, is the fact that it has this tremendous barrier of entry that other companies don't have. I mentioned Microsoft, and of course I'm going to talk about like tech companies like Meta, Nvidia, Apple, right? Microsoft. These companies have wide economic moats. However, the barrier of entry is not impossible. I mean, companies come in and compete. You see it all the time. Look, people thought that Intel was so far ahead, and then look what happened to Intel. They fell behind. That's what happens with tech companies. That's why AMD spent so much money on R&D, even though they were making a product that was very in demand. They never wanted to fall behind. They spent so much money on R&D, they almost went bankrupt. But it really paid off for them. It was a good investment. So you have to do this because in tech, companies can be breathing down each other's necks all the time because it's all about innovation. But not in this business. I mean, they're pretty much making the same product that they did around 50 years ago, right? The 747s are still flying. So if you think about it, nothing has changed that much. And the barrier of entry is probably next to impossible to compete with a company like this. I mean, you need patents, designs, a tremendous amount of money is required. And time is an issue here. If you just look right down here, this is all the jets that are being made currently. Just take a look at this. Boeing is the clear leader. The only one they have that competes with them is Airbus, and they don't make as much as they do. See, as you can tell, most of them are Boeing. So they lead in this industry. So they're a clear leader in commercial aircrafts. I mean, this is an essential. It's an extreme demand. Like I said, even before they had these problems, they can't make these things fast enough for the demand. They're in extreme demand. Who else are you going to go to, right? If you need a wide-body aircraft, you need commercial aircraft, you have to deal with them. And that means This company doesn't have to worry about competition. So that's a tremendous thing. And the barrier of entry I mentioned is probably the highest of any company that has wide economic moats. A company with a wide economic moat has to worry, well, maybe one day what we do will fall out of favor and somebody else will be out there and compete. Well, they don't have to worry about that because commercial aircrafts, there's nothing to fall out of favor. You got to have them. There's nothing that can replace them. At the current price, the question is this a price to consider? Well, let's take a look and see what it's evaluated at. So if we take a look here, the most conservative estimate is $140. Investment firms are saying that the low end is 140. Okay, right here, they have a totally different valuation. They're saying the fair value is $416. That's far higher where the price is right now. Okay, so as you can see here, it is making a lot of money. I mean, the revenue is strong. It's been pretty consistent up until around COVID, which obviously that was going to happen. A lot less people are flying. As you can see, companies started to lose money, which is understandable. But then it started to pick up. See, as you can see, they started to try to get things turned around. Revenue was going up. The net income was still negative, but they were losing less than they were prior. It seems to be improving. As you can look right here, see, revenue is consistently going up. But here's the main problem. Debt. I mean, it far exceeds their cash, which is a big problem, especially for a company that has very high capex. To build commercial jets is very expensive, so they have a lot of debt. Now, the good news is that debt is coming down, but so is their cash. So that's also not a good sign. So this is a problem right here. I mean, if you look at their debt and their cash. And the question is, can they get this turned around? How much more could they borrow? And then you have to look at interest rates. That's another major factor. If the Fed keeps rates high, their borrowing costs are going to remain high. And what's worse is if they raise rates, well, their borrowing costs go even higher. And when you have a debt of this magnitude, that's going to be a high cost situation for Boeing. Okay, let's look a little bit further. Now, the good news is their operating cash flow has gone positive. Their free cash flow has also turned positive. So that's another good thing. So if you look at all the positives and the negatives, the question is at what price? I would not buy it at 140. I think 140 is still very high. I've seen great businesses go from very high prices that have great financials, but because of just bad news that had a much better balance sheet than Boeing, still go down substantially in the double digits. That might be something to consider. If this stock went down to the high 70s, low 80s, which is a possibility, I think that might be a price level to consider possibly taking a position, but not ruling out any other financial underlying factors. So there you have it. So this is analysis of Boeing. Make sure to subscribe to find out what's coming up next. Feel free to leave comments. Please like up this video, and thank you for tuning in.